Hey, today we're going to talk about 3 subtle tips for the Minilogue XD. I've owned this synth for a number of years and I just wanted to share a couple little things that I've learned along the way. Tip number 1 is to make your own INIT preset patch. The default INIT preset patch is good, however, there's just a couple of things that I almost always change whenever I initialize the XD. Here's what the INIT preset patch sounds like. That's fine. I think that that's a good place to start. However, one of the very first things that I'm going to change is the LFO and the way that it functions. Currently, the default setting is key synced. So whenever you hit a key on your MIDI controller or your keyboard, it's going to re-trigger the LFO. And I don't really like that because the way that I like to use the LFO is just maybe for like a little bit more subtle random pitch variation. Let me show you what it sounds like by default. I'm going to put this on saw just so that we can sort of hear this, and I'll move this down a little bit slower. Here with each press that it's just starting that cycle over again, and if I hold it, I don't really like that, so I'm going to change that. We're going to press edit, and then we'll hit this 4th button here, and it brings us to the LFO menu. If you press it again, we have LFO key sync, which is on. I'm going to go ahead and just turn that off, and we'll exit out of here, and then we'll listen now. I probably wouldn't have a saw wave for that. I'd use a triangle, and I'll pull this down to something just a little bit more moderate. Just a little wonky. I like the way that that sounds, right? And I'll just go ahead and pull that all the way down. Whenever I open up my initialized patch, I can just crank that just a little bit. By default, the pitch bend range is set to 2 semitones, and I don't really like that. So let's go ahead and change that as well. I'll hit edit, and then we're gonna press this first button here, and then this allows us to change the pitch bend range. We can go to all the way off, or we can go up an octave. I normally like it to just be 1 note or 1 semitone, right? We'll exit out of there. The last thing I'm going to change is the amp envelope release. And I just want a little bit more. This is what it sounds like by default, right? Sounds just kind of like a beep. And I'm just going to put a little bit on here. It sounds a little bit more musical to me. So that's my INIT preset patch. That's a better place for me to start. So I'll go ahead and hit right, and I'll save that. Now I have my own INIT preset patch. Tip number 2 is to save your INIT preset patch as a favorite. If you hold down Shift and then long press any of these 16 buttons, it will save whatever preset patch that you have on as a favorite. Let me show you how that works. So we've got our INIT preset patch. I'm going to hold down Shift, and then I'm going to long press this first one. And now it has saved my INIT preset patch here as a favorite. So let's say that I turn on the XD, Blade Runner sound, right? Shift, there. I have my INIT preset patch. Tip number 2, that's a good tip. Tip number 3, I just stole this one from Camille from Noise Harmony. I'll put a link to the video that I found this in the description below. I just learned this last week, and I've had this thing for like 4 or 5 years. I just learned this last week, and I think that this is so cool. There are 4 different mod effects on the XD. There's ensemble, phaser, flanger, chorus. I didn't realize there's a ton of different variations of these mod effects. We can get to these different effects by holding down Shift and then just flicking the select switch. I'll just go through all of these so you can hear them real quickly. you found that helpful. If you get a chance, I dropped an album 2 months ago called Descent. It's on my Bandcamp. I'll put a link in the description below. If you get a chance to listen to it, I would appreciate it. And have a good day. Talk to you later. Bye.